And we will pay homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. We have already talked about the first set of 4 Ānāpānassati. But today we have to continue the second set of 4. As we have explained before, the first set of 4, we have to learn anything about the Ānāpānassati for basic level. Also, we can also learn in the part of Saddha breath, and we can also learn Vipassana in the part of Saddha breath. So it will be very much in detail if we explain the first set of 4. But now, the second set of 4 is only Vipassana. So when we are going to learn the second set of 4, we have to know what are they. Then 5, unsure breathing, experiencing rapture, thus he trains. Unsure breathe out, experiencing rapture, thus he trains. In Pali, we call Piti Piti Samvedi, Asasi Samvedi Sikati, Piti Piti Samvedi, Basasi Samvedi Sikati. So these are number 5. Here, rapture, joy, or in Pali we call piti. It will associate with the first jhana, the second jhana, but in the third jhana, it will not associate with rapture or piti. Then 6, unsure breathing, experiencing bliss, thus he trains. Unsure breathe out, experiencing the bliss, thus he trains. So, if we are going to talk about this one in Pali, Sukha Piti Samvedi, Asasi Samvedi Sikati, Sukha Piti Samvedi, Asasi Samvedi Sikati. So here, when we talk about Sukha, we can also understand Sukha, so can associate with the second jhana, the first jhana, the second jhana, and the third jhana. So whenever we are going to talk about these 2 part of the section of the second set of 4, we have to remember the jhana factors. According to jhana factors, we have to approach these 2. Then this one, 7. Unsure breathing, experiencing the mental formation, thus he trains. Unsure breathe out, experiencing the mental formation, thus he trains. Citta Sankhara Piti Samvedi, Asasi Samvedi Sikati. Citta Sankhara Piti Samvedi, Basasi Samvedi Sikati. This is the Pali words. So Citta Sankhara Piti Samvedi, of course, if we say Citta Sankhara, in every single jhana, there's a consciousness, there's the mind. So it also means the feeling brigades and perception brigades. Surely later we have to explain a little bit more in detail. Then 8, unsure breathe out, unsure breathing, tranquilizing the mental formation. Thus he trains. Unsure breathe out, tranquilizing the mental formation, thus he trains. Pasapayan kaya Citta Sankhara, Asasi Samvedi Sikati. Pasapayan Citta Sankhara, Asasi Samvedi Sikati. So when we talk about tranquilizing, it also means the feeling contemplation. So, okay, we will elaborate one by one. Later we also have mentioned about patvdh. What does it mean, patvdh? The next one. So entering the first jhana, the second jhana. In the first jhana and the second jhana, it was associated with piti. Piti was associated with these two jhanas. So entering these two jhanas, one of these two jhanas, after that, imagine from one of these two, he discerns the destructions and variations of rupture that are associated with wisdom. So the main thing is we have to discern jhana dhamma. Actually, when we talk about Vipassana from Ānāpānassati, for those who can attain jhana, can enter into jhana, imagine from it, discern mentality first. After that, they can also continue discerning materiality. This is the first part. Therefore, those who cannot attain jhana, they may have asset concentrations. Then entering into asset concentration, they can practice 4-element meditation. Then they can continue practicing, discerning all other rupas, and also continue discerning namas, mentalities. So these are the way we have to approach Vipassana. Now here, in the case of patvdh, it just mentioned destructions. We can say kaya and vaya, right? Decay or destructions, operations or rupture, that's associated with wisdom. Although here we just talk about rupture and wisdom, it also covers all other mental factors and consciousness in the process. So we have to discern all types of mentality that's associated with the jhana, and besides focusing on rupture. Now, one practicing this is insight. He experiences the natural and general characteristics of rupture with no confusion. So here I also use in the bracket. Rupture alone cannot arise. It will arise together with associated mental patterns, also associated with associated consciousness. Okay, see, jhana consciousness. Although we talk about patvdh, we have to focus on all mentality. We have to discern all mentalities. After that, we have to continue discerning their causes. Then we also have to discern Nityadukkha and so forth. This part is about Vipassana. So we also have Sukha Patissamvedi. So Sukha Patissamvedi is also entering the first jhana, and the second jhana, and the third jhana. Well, in the fourth jhana, it doesn't associate with Sukha. It will be saying to patvdh, but here we just emphasize focusing on Sukha, one of the feeling. So it doesn't mean Sukha, happiness alone can arise. As we have mentioned before, Sukha will arise together with associated mental factors and jhana consciousness. In this context. Then, as we have mentioned before, we have to discern jhana dhammas and rupas, their causes, and contemplate that as Nityadukkha. Then again, Citta Sankhara Patissamvedi. So Citta Sankhara, this means actually entering to the first, the second, the third, the fourth jhana. In every jhana, there's a consciousness. Without consciousness, jhana cannot arise. Jhana in itself is also called consciousness. So anyway, now we have to talk about discernment. Chitta Sankara means the feeling aggregates and perception aggregates. It's mentioned its definition. So according to 5 aggregate methods, it can cover feeling aggregates and perception aggregates. So Chitta Sankara. So again, here also we have to emphasize focus on feeling aggregate or perception aggregates. Then we can continue discerning all other rupas and causes. After that, contemplate all of them as anicca dukkha anatta. Pasambayan Chitta Sankaram, tranquilizing mental formation. So this set of 4 explains emphasize feeling aggregates, feeling contemplation. Also Chitta Sankara again, feeling and perception. So when we talk about Mahasatipatthana, in the very beginning, we also have already explained when we can practice for the mindfulness of breathing, we can also practice, we can also develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this part, this set of 4 explains, emphasized in feeling contemplation. As we have already mentioned before, in the very beginning, it is piti-piti samvedi. The second one is sukha-piti samvedi. Right? Then the third one is Chitta Sankara, the 4th one also Chitta Sankara. That is why we can understand in these 4, it just mentioned the feeling aggregates, feeling contemplations. Okay, now we have to move to the third set of 4. In the third set of 4, it mentioned Ansha breathing, experiencing the mind that he trains. Ansha breathe out, experiencing the mind that he trains. Chitta-piti samvedi, asasi samvedi sikati, Chitta-piti samvedi, asasi samvedi sikati. So this one is about the mind. Then 2, it mentioned Ansha breathing, gladdening the mind that he trains. Ansha breathe out, gladdening the mind that he trains. In Pali, Abhimodayan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati, Abhimodayan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati. Now we have the third one. Ansha breathing, concentrating the mind that he trains. Ansha breathe out, concentrating the mind that he trains. Samadhan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati, Samadhan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati. In this part, we can learn something about momentary concentration. So we can find the informations about, source of reference about momentary concentration in Visuddhimagga, also Buddhist-Sambhita-Magga, and Samatha-Vipassanā commentary. So there, when we talk about Samadhan Chitta, it mentioned the momentary concentration. Later, I have to explain what's it really called momentary concentrations according to Pali. Then 4, Ansha breathing, liberating the mind that he trains. Ansha breathe out, liberating the mind that he trains. Vimochayan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati, Vimochayan Chitta, asasi samvedi sikati. In Pali. These are the third 4 according to Ānāpānassati Sutta. So here we mention Citta Patissamvedi in Pali, the first part. Entering the first, the second, the third, the fourth jhana. Okay, one more thing here. These four are mind contemplation. So here, in this part, we have to know the consciousness and their associated mental factors. So on the side, focusing on the consciousness, we can also discern all other mental factors. After that, we can also discern their causes and we can contemplate them as anicca dukkha anatta. This is called Citta Patissamvedi. Abhimodaya and Citta entering the first and the second jhana. So we can understand these types refer to Samatha-Vipassanā, both. So we have to enter into the jhana, we also have to continue practicing Vipassana. But anyway, when we talk about Abhimodaya and Citta, we can say gladden the mind. Of course, when we have piti, rapture, we can gladden our mind. If we don't have piti, we cannot gladden our mind. That's why it's mentioned entering the first, the second jhana. In the third jhana, no piti, only sukha. Right? That's why we can enter into two different jhanas. Actually, not only that, we can also gladden our mind in many different other ways, such as Puranosati and so forth. When we have Puranosati, then we can have rapture, joy. After that, we can continue practicing Vipassana. So here, Abhimodaya and Citta, this is a Ānāpānassati. So practice Ānāpānassati. When we can attain the first jhana, the second jhana, entering into it, we can have rapture, piti. Then we can discern jhana Citta. Also associated mental factors, discern materialities. After that, we can continue contemplating their, discern their causes and contemplating them as anicca dukkha anatta. Then we also have Samadhi and Citta. This one is really, really very important for the listeners. So concentrating on the mind, in any jhanas, there's a mind, there's a consciousness. So the explanations of momentary concentrations is mentioned in this part. We can find, here I use Pali, English bilingual. Samadhanti tanti pataman janati vasena aramani citta samam adahando samam tapendo. This is Pali definitions. So Samadhanti means evenly placing the mind on the object and the power of first jhana, etc. Here we use etc. Adi Vasena. That means it can be second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana, or any kind of attainment is possible. But here in the case of Ānāpānassati, we have to talk about only up to fourth jhana because we cannot attain immaterial jhana by practicing Ānāpānassati. So briefly, when we talk about momentary concentration, we have to remember these definitions. After we have the next steps. Tani wa pana janani. Samabhajitawa bhutaya. Jana sambyudan chidan khayado vayado sampasanto. In other words, entering those jhanas and emerging from them. Actually, we can enter one of those jhana, or we can emerge from any of jhana we entered. While contemplating the jhana minds and associated mentalities as decaying or destructions or variation. This is the second part we have to remember. Then Vipassana Kane Lakana Pati Veda Lakana Pati Vedena Upajandi Kanika Chitikakata. At the time of insight, momentary concentration arises, realizing the three characteristics. The Visuddhimagga, Book 1, page 281, Samatha-Vipassanā commentary, Book 2, 101, the Samatha-Vipassanā commentary, Book 2, page 33. So these are the body source. Okay, in this page, now current slideshow, okay, time to prepare slideshow. In this page, we can understand how is momentary concentration. How momentary concentration arises. First, we must enter into the jhana. After that, we must emerge from it. That we must discern jhana dhamma, that means jhana consciousness and associated mentalities. And we have to contemplate that as anicca dukkha anatta. Right? Here, decay and aberration. Then, at the time we can say it's a vipassana. At the time of insight, the momentary concentration arises, realizing the three characteristics. So, which means our minds must be able to focus on the momentary arising and aberration of jhana dhamma. At the time, our mind will understand the general characteristics such as anicca dukkha anatta, right? Impermanence, suffering, nonsense of nama rupas. At the moment, insight knowledge arises. At the time also, kanika samadhi, momentary concentration arises. So many people also ask me, what about momentary concentration? Can we practice what momentary vipassana? What's momentary concentration? Here in this context, in this soft reference, so we must enter jhana, emerge from jhana, then discern jhana dhamma, also contemplate that as anicca dukkha anatta, then momentary concentration will arise at the time. So not that simple, not that easy. So this is the answer for you. So whenever you are going to talk about momentary concentration, you have to remember all these sources. Get on next one. If we categorize the right concentrations, there are only two types of concentrations: accept concentrations and absorption concentration. Then in other words, there are absorption in the objects and in the characteristics according to Samatha-Vipassanā, the path of purification, page 282. Okay, now we have to understand one more thing. We have two types of absorptions. In samatha, our mind must absorb on samatha object. That means pratibhagga nimitta. When our mind can absorb in Ānāpāna pratibhagga nimitta, in the case of Ānāpānassati, then there can be absorption in jhana. We call Aramanupani jhana in Pali. So in the case of momentary concentration, when we are going to discern nama rupas of jhana dhammas, at the time we just know the natural characteristics or individual characteristics of nama rupas. At the time we can say this momentary concentration. For example, in the case of earth elements, now we have to discern hardness, roughness, heaviness, softness, smoothness, lightness. These are the characteristics of earth elements. When we are discerning all these things, then we can say our mind must absorb on the characteristics. We can say this is Lakhanupani jhana, is Vipassana. After discerning all types of namas and rupas, now we must be able to contemplate all the nama which are possible to practice Vipassana, possible for observe Vipassana. Also, we have to discern rupa, to contemplate all the rupas which are possible to contemplate as anicca dukkha anatta. At the time, we also know general characteristics of Nama-rupas. This is also called Lakhanupani jhana, absorption in characteristics. So according to Samatha, we also have Samatha jhana. In Vipassana also we have Vipassana jhana. For those who cannot attain jhana, they must attain asset concentration. We call purifications of the mind. When we can purify our mind, we can continue practicing Vipassana. So in the case of the meditator who cannot attain jhana, they just attain asset concentrations. Then based on asset concentration, they can also continue practicing Rupa meditations, the Nama meditations. When they're discerning Nama Rupas, we can say is also momentary concentration. They might know only the natural characteristics of Nama Rupas. Okay, now next one. Vimochya and Chitam, liberating the mind. So the mind is liberated from hindrances by the first jhana. So when we attain first jhana, our mind must be free from hindrances, such as sensual desire, ill will, remorse, and restlessness. Also, we also have like a sloth and torpor. We also have like a ignorance. Now, our mind will be free from hindrances like this. These are called mental impurity. When our mind is impure, we cannot attain jhana. Although we see the nimitta cannot be very stable when we have hindrances. So, in the case of when we attain the first jhana, our mind is free from hindrances. The mind is liberated from hindrances. Then, liberated from initial application, such application by the second jhana. When we can attain second jhana, our mind must be liberated from such applications or initial application. So, which means when we attain jhana, in the first jhana, we have to apply our mind to the object continuously. We have to sustain our mind, like fixing on the object. But when we attain jhana, it will naturally fix. We don't need to apply anymore. We don't need to fix purposely. That's why our mind is free from initial application and sustained application. Sometimes people misunderstand. Vitakka is also thoughts. People misunderstand initial thoughts. Such application, they also understand sustained thoughts. Or that means when we are meditating, we must think about breathing. It's not like that. Here we just use like a Vitakka, directing your mind to know the object. We can say directing. We also use initial application. So vichara will fix your mind on the objects because sustained application, sustainment. Then the mind is liberated from rupture by the third jhana. So in the very beginning of meditations, the rupture will be very gross. Actually, in the very beginning of talk, I have already explained when we talk about the development. How can we understand that we are improving? At the time, I also have list of answer. I mentioned rupture. When we can have piti, we can also say that is improving. I have already explained at the time, we have many different types of rupture. Sometimes you may feel like you are floating, sinking, flying, swaying. What about then you feel? This is the sense of rupture. According to Pali, in Pali we just use the piti. So in the very beginning, rupture of the piti is very gross. It can distract our minds. It can distort our minds to keep knowing one object. So when we can attain jhana, the rapture becomes very subtle, very fine, very pleasant, not that much disturbance. So although it's pleasant, but in the third jhana, the rapture has already eradicated or removed by the power of the third jhana. So the mind is liberated from the pleasant or unpleasant feeling by the fourth jhana. In the fourth jhana, there are only two jhana factors, upekkha, equanimity, and ekaggata, one-pointedness. Here we just say upekkha as an equanimity. What does it mean, upekkha? Upekkha means neither pleasant nor unpleasant, more natural feeling. Most of the time in our daily life, we have upekkha, equanimity. Now you are listening, mostly you have equanimity. Neither pleasant nor unpleasant, natural feeling. In the case of the fourth jhana, mind does not incline to any pleasant or unpleasant feeling, more equanimity, more stability. So happiness also emotion. Happiness also emotion. It also causes emotion. But now, at the time of fourth jhana, no emotion. Mind is very calm, peaceful, also tranquilized, equanimity, equanimous. So, when we are going to practice, then we have to know all these things. That means liberating the mind, right? So the first jhana is liberating from hindrances. So we have to discern jhana, DHAMMA, or first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and the associated mental factors. So this part is about Citta Vipassana. Citta Nupassana, we can say like that. So there are many other explanations about liberations. Okay, the next one, it will mention a little bit more in detail. So after jhanas, in the insight, the mind is liberated from the perceptions of permanence by contemplating impermanence. So here we talk about impermanence. Many people misunderstand, right? So after a few seconds change, after a few minutes change, actually, even in nanoseconds, millions, there are many mind moments can arise and perish. That is why we can understand the momentary arising and perishing of nama-rupas. We can understand impermanence clearer. So when we have the perceptions of impermanence, then sure, our mind can be liberated from the perceptions of permanence. The mind is liberated from perceptions of pleasure and contemplating suffering. So mostly when we talk about suffering, people just understand, right? Sickness or aging or all these things. These are very common. Everybody can understand, so we have this kind of suffering. But here, when we talk about contemplating as suffering, that means because of momentary arising and perishing, we can feel or we can see as suffering. For example, you are carrying very big pile of plates, maybe clay pots, for example. Then they are fall down one by one and crash, smash into pieces. In your hands, they are pots. After falling down, they are rubbish. Now, similarly, within that, we have our body, but the body is made of particles. It very rapidly rising and perishing. This is also cheating. We are cheated by mentality, suffering. So or we can understand the momentary arise and apparition. We can also say momentary suffering. We can, in Pali, we just say dukkha, dukkha. That's called riya dukkha. Right? Double dukkha, you know? Dukkha, dukkha. That means double dukkha. So mostly we understand viprinama dukkha. We're going to transform suffering. Which means now we are happy, but when something very bad thing happens, we have to suffer for it. This is called transform. Happiness change to unhappiness. Almost all the people understand this kind of suffering. But in the case of Vipassana, not like this. We have to know the momentary suffering. Momentary arise and apparition. In Pali we call dukkha, dukkha, real suffering. So if we can understand real suffering, then we may be able to overcome the perceptions of pleasure. Our mind is liberated from the perceptions of pleasure. The mind is liberated from the perceptions of self by contemplating non-self. So I have already mentioned this body is made of small particles. So in each particle, there's also natural characteristics, such as earth elements, water elements, fire elements, wind elements, color, smell, taste, flavor, and so forth. So particle is a concept. There's the characteristics in that particles. They are ultimate reality. They are out of our control. That's why non-self. So when we can understand non-self very clearly, our mind can overcome the perceptions of self or soul. So our mind is liberated from perceptions of self when we can understand non-self clearly. So liberated from delights by contemplating distraction, nibbida. Sometimes we have a lot of happiness, right? Delight. So when we have if we just continue as a nibbida, of course, sometimes we just know only the perishing state, you know, only passing away all the time. There will be nibbida. Anytime there can be nibbida, distraction. We can contemplate distraction. Then our mind will be free from delight. So the mind is liberated from attachment by contemplating detachment, viraga. Some we also say fading away. Viraga also fading away. Of course, when we understand fading away all the time, when we have less attachment. Right? If we know all the things, all our belongings are temporary, right? We have telephone, just temporary. After 2 or 3 years, it will be out of date. When we have laptop, MacBook, many modern things, after 1 year, out of date, right? We just want to get new things. That's mean attachment. If we just know they are just visitor, just temporary, they don't live together with us long time, we may have less attachment. If we have some disaster, sure, it can spoil all the electrical things. Like something like a flood, burning, like many unseen dangers. Okay, the main thing is, when we can understand the fading away, then we have less attachments, our mind can be free from attachments, then our mind is liberated from attachments. Our mind is liberated from arising by contemplating cessation, nirodha. So in the very beginning, we have to know the arising and apparition of nama-rupas. Gradually, we just know only the perishing state. Because nama-rupa are arising and apparition very rapidly. Finally, we cannot catch arising state. We just know only the perishing state. So if we can contemplate Namarupa as a passing away or cessation, yeah, we have two types of cessation, momentary cessation and complete cessation. Yeah, we can talk about momentary concentration or momentary cessation. So if we can contemplate the passing away of Namarupas, then sure, our mind is liberated from rising. Our mind is liberated from grasping by contemplating relinquishment, Nisaga. If we know relinquishment, sure, every single step, there's a relinquishment. Without relinquishing, we cannot improve ourselves. In every single steps, we have to relinquish something. For example, now we already talk about many different types of liberation, right? And the first jhana, no more hindrances and so forth. So if we know relinquishment, no more grasping. So these are Vimochaya and Chitam according to Vipassana. So we have the next one, the 404. It will be the last part for today's Taman talk. So, I shall breathe in, contemplating impermanence that he trains. I shall breathe out, contemplating impermanence that he trains. Anicca nupassi asasi samiti sikati, anicca nupassi pasasi samiti sikati. 2. I shall breathe in, contemplating fading away that he trains. I shall breathe out, contemplating fading away that he trains. Viraganupassi asasi samiti sikati, viraganupassi pasasi samiti sikati. So here we talk about contemplation of impermanence, contemplation of fading away. Now we have another 2 more. 3. I shall breathe in, contemplating cessation, thus he trains. I shall breathe out, contemplating cessation, thus he trains. Nirodha nupassi asasi samiti sikati, nirodha nupassi pasasi samiti sikati. The 4. I shall breathe in, contemplating relinquishment, thus he trains. I shall breathe out, contemplating relinquishment, thus he trains. Parinisaka nupassi asasi samiti sikati, parinisaka nupassi pasasi samiti sikati. So these are explanations of the 404. In the very beginning, we talk about anicca nupassi, rising, perishing, and changing of 5 gates. This is called anicca nupassi. Of course, we are changing every single second, every single nanosecond, but we don't know. But when we have inside knowledge, we can know the rise and apparition, momentary rise and apparition of Namarupas. It's always changing, always rise and apparition. So when we can understand the rise and apparition of the 5 gates, we can understand nature. This is also Vipassana. Viraga nupassi, fading away. So there are 2 types of fading away. Kaya viraga, destructions. Also achanda viraga, absolute fading away. So in other words, they are momentary fading away and totally fading away. We can say completely fading away. Those are the name of insights and path knowledge. For example, at the time of insight knowledge, we have momentary fading away. But when we can pay attention, when we can attain the path knowledge, our mind will take Nibbana as object. Now, when we attain Nibbana, Nibbana is not fading away. No arising, no fading away. This is just as it is only the object of path and fruition knowledge. So the main thing is, after attaining final cessations, Nibbana, for example, for arhats. When they pass away, no more nama rupas. Totally fading away without rising anymore. So Nirodha Anupas is also same as a Viraga. Right? So that means we have two types of cessations, momentary cessations. Also, we can say total, the complete cessation. I have already explained before. At the time of Vipassana, we have momentary cessation. And for example, according to dependent origination, because of the cessations of avijja, sankhara cease. For example, when we are practicing Vipassana, we can understand rise or cessation, post cessation, the cause also cessations, the effort also cessation. But this avijja and sankhara, both were totally ceased after parinibbana for arhat. When they pass away, no more namarupa. This is called complete cessation. Now we also have the next part, parinissagga nupassi. So relinquishments also, we have contemplation by insight and path knowledge. There are two types of relinquishments. So the first one is Parichaga Parinissagga. Yeah, we just use the Pali. Parichaga Parinissagga. We can say give it up. So give it up means it's the name of contemplating insights and noble paths. The Dhanga and the Samuchita. Okay, the Dhanga also can understand as like a temporary, short time, like oppress or suppress. We can suppress, or we can also replace or substitute. So the Dhanga means only temporarily we can give up. For example, when we are practicing Vipassana, no more akusala chitta will arise. That is it. That's temporarily. Samuchita means uprooted or eradicated. So when we can attain path and fruition knowledge, we can eradicate the defilements completely without remainder. This is called Samuchita Bahana. So now, when we are going to talk about Parichaga Parinissagga, then this also can be considered as insight knowledge and path knowledge, similar to the previous one. Now we also like Pakandana Parinissagga, entering into Nibbana. That means we can realize Nibbana, we can enter into Nibbana. So, seeing the force of conditional formations, it enters Nibbana. But there's no conditional formation in Nibbana. So we have to understand entering into, that means we enter into Nibbana, right? This is called Nibbana. So in the case, when we are discerning Namarupas, our conditional formation, they have their causes. We also have to understand cause, arising, and perishing. But when we are practicing Vipassana, contemplation, right? We also have to know their forces. After attaining Nibbana, given as not conditional formation, unconditioned by anything. For example, our rupas. Okay, rupa is a little bit very far. We should talk about practical way. For example, our body. If too cold, it will change. If too hot, our body will change. Our body response will change. Too hungry, thirsty, or satiated, eating too much or overeating, then body will change. or no more sleeping, or to oversleeping. It will change. So our body is conditioned by many, many supporting causes. In the case of Nibbana, no such cases. No conditions. We can say unconditional. And Bali asankata. So this is the power of Ānāpānassati. So when we are going to practice Ānāpānassati according to Buddha's teaching, we have to understand all these 4 steps of 4 set of 4. We can also find all these 4 set of 4 in Sambuddha Nikaya. We can also find in Visuddhimagga, Majjhima Nikaya. We can also find in the Samatha-Vipassanā commentary. Also, we also have to can also find the Vinaya, the first volume. So there are many, many informations about Ānāpānassati. As I have mentioned the first Dhamma talk, it's very simple, very natural. We don't need to add any other things into Ānāpānassati. It's totally pure. Also, we can also purify our mind easily by practicing mindfulness of breathing. As I mentioned before, when we are going to practice kasina, we have to bring white color, a piece of cloth, a piece of paper, a plastic, or any white color. It can be external objects. When we are going to practice Ānāpānassati, the mindfulness of breathing, we can focus on our breath anywhere, anytime, in any situation, because it's always together with us. So today, this is the last part of Ānāpānassati. So maybe next time we will talk about self-purification briefly. It can be the summary of Visuddhimagga. Right? Self-purification is a summary of Visuddhimagga. So may you all be able to practice the Buddha's teaching, and may you all be able to realize the end of suffering, Nibbana.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir. The question is, so today I practice meditation. After focus on the breath, so my whole body feel like very heavy, and also I cannot move myself. And even though I feel that very I aware of everything, but I can know the breath, but I also know everything around me, surrounding me, and my body, it seems to be very tense and very heavy. And I want to emerge from this, I want to overcome this condition. After I breathe in and out, or sometimes deep breath, and I just shake my head, move my head, but many times, and then I can overcome that problem. But after that, I still feel that very heavy and very uncomfortable. So my Sayadaw teach me how to overcome this problem.
Mm-hmm. Actually, heaviness is one of the characteristics of earth elements. If you think about heaviness, you may feel heaviness all over the body or anytime. What about lightness? If you think about lightness, also your body can be very light. Okay, so when you are focusing on the breath, don't think about any natural characteristics or individual characteristics such as heaviness, lightness, softness, roughness, or anything. If you think about it, it will be the impediment. It can be an obstacle. So when you are focused on the breath, it should be very simple, focus on the breath. Don't think about body or any other things. I have already reminded, don't follow outside your body or inside your body. You also know many things around you, right? That means you are following externally, outside your body. So if you can avoid following internally or externally, then you can overcome this problem.
Second question, Sayadaw. Vanami said also, every day I do the sitting. So one sitting about 2 hours, 2 hours, 30 minutes. So I can focus on the breath continuously about 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I have a question here. When the light appear and I keep observe on the light, and the light become brighter and brighter, I keep continue focus on the light, and my breath become very subtle, and I cannot feel the breath anymore. At that time, the light become weaker and dimmer, and I come back to concentrate, focus on the breath again. So is that correct? Should I continue to practice like that? Can Sayadaw teach me?
Okay, so one more thing about the light. So as long as you can know the breathing, keep focus on the breathing. Sometimes the light can be everywhere. Don't follow the light or don't focus on the light. Keep focus on the breathing. When the one nimitta appear in around nostril, that means the breath is very bright. Around nostril it becomes very bright. That's why when your breath becomes very subtle, your mind will naturally know the nimitta. Very strong light around nostril. At the time, it will be okay. In your case, your light becomes dimmer and dimmer, but you can also feel the breathing, and keep knowing breathing. Sometimes your breath becomes very subtle. As long as you can know breathing, patiently focus on it. If your breath disappears only for a short time, right, then you can wait and watch around the nostril. If your breath disappears a very long time, you can feel something moving, some sensation around the nostril. You can say touching point or touching around nostril, like crawling or something like that. You can know there as a breath, your breath will reappear. So I have already mentioned before, you can focus either in breath, the out breath, or the touching point. When your breath disappears, there will be touching points. Focus there as a breath. It will reappear. You can focus on it. Okay?
Vietnamese Sayadaw. So in the last two Dhamma talk, so Sayadaw teach us about how to focus on the breath. And I also follow Sayadaw teaching, and I practice a half a year, more than a year. And I feel like the lightness, I feel the light, comfortable, and very comfortable. And when I practice for the long time, and the tension, all the sensation, heaviness, the tension disappear. And I also overcome the controlling breath. And I keep practicing like that, and I feel always, my mind always with the breath in all the posture, like standing or sitting, lying down. I always focus on the breath. Mm-hmm. And I also feel that if I follow this, cũng cái này sẽ không thấy hơi thở vi tế như nếu, và con cảm thấy nếu làm theo cách này thì cũng, but I feel that I cannot know the subtle breath even though I just follow all those 4 stages of the breath. So it means my understanding is correct.
Okay, so as long as you can know breathing, don't expect the breath or breath or anything. As long as actually is good enough, is it correct? Okay, this one. Part 2, right? Two part of question, right?
Yes, that was the second part of the question. Khi con quan sát thì con cảm thấy vùng mà con biết hơi thở. When I focus on the breath around the nostril, so I feel that there is some suction, or I feel like something that pulling me inside to the inside, and I also feel that like the light, the solid light, and Ngài có dạy cho con, but Sayadaw teach me only focus on the breath at that time, and I just lúc đó con tác ý nơi đó, and I just remind my mind that the breath is there. Instead of knowing the light, so I know the breath, and even the light appears, so I just come back to know the breath, remind myself to know the breath, and I just do it again and again throughout the sitting. So may Sayadaw teach me further.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you have natural focusing, as you have mentioned now, right? You are focusing naturally, although you don't focus on lights. This is good enough. I mean, to overcome the lights is not that easy, right? Now, although you see the light, you can focus on the breath. This is good enough now. More patience, more natural focusing, then you will become skillful. Your skill will teach you better. Okay?
Question number 4. Dear Sayadaw, This part, they have a couple parts in the question. The part one is breathing mindfully in breath, doing process or non-doing process.
Actually, okay, that means as long as we have mindfulness to know the breathing, this is good enough. We cannot say process or non-process, right? Don't analyze too much. If you analyze, you will get confused. The main thing is natural breathing. Also, your mind must know it, or you must be aware of it. That's good enough. Okay. Next, second two question.
Part number two, after wandering thought, if I bring back mind on the breath, it started longing to the breath itself.
Okay. So, as long as you
how?
Okay.
Oh, I think the next question they said part three, but I think it's continuously.
Okay.
How mind can be one pointedness if the object itself moving,
Sure.
i.e., breath? Yes.
Okay. So that means it's we call Jala Samadhi, Ajala Samadhi according to Pali, right? That means in the case of Ānāpānassati, in the very beginning it will be moving objects, but we must know on the area where we can focus on the breath. That's why we can have one pointedness, knowing the breathing in, breathing out in one place, one area. Right? Ekakata, ekakata, having one object. So breathing in, breathing out, or touching points. You have to know one of the three. It doesn't mean you have to know three of them, right? Three together. You have to know one of the three. Then this is perfect. So that means you are knowing one of the objects in one time. Right? For example, now you will know in breath. A few seconds later, you may know the out breath. Sometimes you cannot know in and out, you just know the touching. It's changeable, so your mind should be flexible. So mainly when your mind is flexible to know in breath, out breath, and touching, then you may have one pointedness. If your mind is not very flexible, analyzing many different things, you will get confused and also no more one pointedness. Okay? 4.
Part number 4, mind on the wandering thought or on breath are its object. If it loses all body senses except mind, can we say that both are meditation?
In the case of meditation, we must have meditation subjects. So our mind must know meditation objects. For example, when we are practicing Ānāpānassati, our mind must keep knowing the Ānāpānassati, breathing. If we don't know breathing, that means we are not meditating. Right? So we have to understand like this. Another one is, mind is not the object of meditation, right? So we can lose all the body senses, but we must have meditation subjects. This is called meditation. If we don't know any meditation, this is just wasting time, resting time, not meditating. Okay, next one. 5.
And the last one, number 5. If remember to be mindful in daily task, mind started feeling uncomfortable. What efforts need to put to be mindful in daily task so that it feels easy and comfortable?
Okay. So when we are going to talk about meditations, we must know meditation subjects, right? The daily text, sure, it will be very messy. We may not have one object all the time. Also, mind is not very sharp. If we wish to train our minds to be stronger and sharper, we should know only one thing, one object, breathing. It will be easier. So comfort or discomfort, it just comes from the mind and the body. So if we know how to balance our efforts, then sure, we can feel free, comfortable. Sometimes we may use extra efforts, we may feel discomfort and unpleasant. So that is it normal. It comes from our skill. When we become skillful, any subject can be okay. It will be comfortable. So this is training minds and training the body, training for skillfulness. Okay?
When focusing on the breath, the sensations of the air is very strong until the head becomes dizzy. So, but he still try to relax himself, but this air, this qi becomes stronger and stronger. How to overcome this problem?
Actually, if you think about the head, in your case, dizzy, right? Very strong wind. So that means your perception. So when your perception changes, the breathing can change. The breathing is the mindful two materialities. So don't attach to difficulty. Don't attach to impediment. Sometimes we have difficulty. Difficulty is not really problem. Attachment to difficulty is the problem. Rather than worry about difficulty, right? So sometimes in the very beginning of sitting, you may worry about it will happen again. Will it be happen? Then is the problem. So don't attach to anything. Don't worry about anything. Whenever you start, you must believe your ability. You can overcome it. Right? Don't think about the disturbance again and again too much. It will be okay. This one.
And question number 6. Dear Sayadaw, what is the purpose for Sayadaw explaining the last 2 set of 4, since most of us not practicing up to the last stage of Vipassana?
Okay. So I just wish to introduce Ānāpānassati Sutta. So as a package, when we talk about Ānāpāna, we have to understand whose sessions of Ānāpānassati. That's why I explain all these 4 set of 4. Right? Okay?
Yes, Sadhu. And question number 7. Dear Sayadaw, when I meditate, I am wandering my whole time. Even I have piti and sukha whole time for 5 hours, but I cannot overcome uddhacca, kukucca, vicikicca, kamacchanda. Please help me.
Okay. So wandering thoughts, sure, it can be any time, although you have piti sukha. Right? Sometimes you may have joined, but actually when you have wandering thoughts, piti sukha not so strong. You may have tranquility not so strong. That's why you have uddhacca, kukucca, vicikicca, kamacchanda, right? All the hindrances. So the main thing is, if you have the same thoughts every day, then it becomes habit. You cannot overcome it. So short thought is okay. Don't accept very long thoughts. Sometimes you have many plans, okay, practically, I have one Dhamma friend. He's a Dhamma talker, He come to meditate in Tawya. He's a little bit senior to me. That he came and told me. As soon as I start sitting, as soon as I close my eyes, I'm giving Dhamma talk. Then when our meditation session is end, with bearing, then after that, I just come back to my place. So that means when he starts sitting, he just giving Dhamma talk because he's Dhamma talker, Whole day he's planning to give Dhamma talk. When the session ends, he starts giving Dhamma talk. So I come back to his place. Although he spent more than 2 or 3 months, no more improvements. Because he's giving Dhamma talk in every single section, The main thing is the thoughts. If you have very long thoughts, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, the same thoughts, you're going to overcome easily. If you have this kind of problem, we recommend to change the object for a short time. For example, chanting Buddha's quality in Pali, understanding the meaning for a while. If you are meditating alone, you can chant Bhagavali, understanding the meaning. If you are meditating in group, okay, recite mentally, understanding the meaning. After that, you can close your eyes, focus on the breath. It will be possible. Okay, the main thing is don't follow the thoughts. Don't keep the same thoughts very long time or many days. It will be the problem. Okay?
Okay, dear Sayadaw, during long breath, how should we decide long and short breath? What is the standards to decide long and short?
Okay, so actually you can decide by yourself. Sometimes you are breathing very slowly, and you can say this is a long breath. Right? Sometimes just normal breathing. Also, you can also say long breath, but sometimes you are breathing very quickly. Then you can decide short breaths. So mostly we have normal breathing, right? At the time we just say short breath. Also, we just say long breath or normal breathing. It depends on meditator. You can decide by yourself. Okay.
Vandami Sayadaw, simply, Sayadaw say, simply knowing the breath. So how to understand this word symbol? In the mind, how the mind becomes symbol and what is not symbol? May Brande please explain symbol, what does that mean further?
I see. This is very, very difficult, right? Many people ask the same question. Symbol means as you are breathing now, you have to breathe in, breathe out. It should be that symbol. Don't mess up with many other ideologies or many other instructions from many different teachers. Okay, breathe naturally, simply. Other than you have to know breathing and breathing out. Don't mess up with many other things. Don't analyze too much, right? When you have a lot of analysis, for example, like learning, many ideology, many theory, then you mess up with many other theory. This scholar said this one, that scholar said that one, right? Don't mess up. In the case of Ānāpānassati, make your mind normal, natural. As long as you can know the breathing good enough, don't mess up with any other object. That's called simple, right? Make your mind simple. Don't think about any other ideology or any other theory, any philosopher, any scholar, right? Just think about the object all the time. It will be easier, right? The next one.
Question number 10. Dear Sayadaw, can we recall our nimitta when past experience? Sayadaw, thank you very much.
Actually, if we recall, it's not that much effective. Right? Just recalling, we cannot regain the concentration of the nimitta. Sometimes nimitta disappear. It's not that easy to recall, right? We don't recommend to recall. Be patient. You must be more patient to achieve previous level. Focus on the breathing normally. It will be more convenient or more effective for the practitioners. Okay?
May Sayadaw please explain what is Samasati in the practice of Ānāpānassati, how to improve mindfulness and how to maintain and develop it.
Actually, the Pali words already mentioned Ānāpānassati, right? Ānāpāna means in breath, out breath. Ānā and Apana are the sati, mindfulness. So mindfulness on the in and out breath. This is called Ānāpānassati. So this is called right concentrations for the beginner. But later, when we can practice like a Satipatthana or many other things, we can say this will be higher mindfulness, because the right mindfulness. Okay, briefly, as long as you can know meditation's subject, meditation objects, I mentioned 3, right? The in-breath, the out-breath, also the touching point. This is called Samasati, right mindfulness. Okay, the next one.
By focusing onto the in-breath, out-breath, or touching point, one of these 3, it is enough. So he would like to ask, in this sitting, I focus on in-breath, then does that mean he just focus on in-breath? Sometimes he cannot focus on in-breath. So in the touching point, should he just focus on the out-breath? Does that mean he is changing the object from out-breath to in-breath?
Actually, we don't recommend to determine like that. So it should be natural. You know, when you have in-breath, you have to know the in-breath. When you have out-breath, just know the out-breath. You know, within one section, there will be a lot of changing. For example, in the very beginning, you can know both in and out-breath. Later, you just know the out-breath, no in-breath. Sometimes only in-breath, no out-breath. It's changeable. So we just recommend to know the breathing naturally, without creating or without forcing anything, to have only in-breath or to have only the out-breath or to know only the touching point, right? It will be very risky. When you have to control or when you have to force, it will get worse. Okay? Etawata ja'amehi
Etawata ja'amehi
Sambadam punya sambadam
Sambadang punya sambadang
Sabbe devanumodandu
Sabbe Deva Anumodantu.
Sabbe Buddha Numodandu.
Sabbe Bhuta Numodantu.
Sabbe Satta Numodandu.
Sabbe Satta Numodantu.
Sabba Sampati Siddhiya.
Sappa Sampati Siddhiya.
Idame Nyadinam Hotu.
Inang Menya Tinang Hotu.
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo.
Sukita Hontu Nyatayo.
Idame Nyadinam Hotu.
Inang Menya Tinang Hontu.
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo.
Sukita Hontu Nyatayo.
Idame Nyadinam Hotu.
Idang Menya Tinang Hotu.
Sukhita Hondu Nyadayo.
Sukita Hontu Nyatayo.
Idame Punyam.
Idang Me Punyang.
Sawakaya.
Asawakaya.
Waham Hotu.
Wahang Hotu.
Idame Punyam.
Idang Me Punyang.
Vipassana.
Vipannassa.
Pajayo.
Pachayo.
Hotu.
Tu.
Mama Punya Bhagam.
Mama Punya Pagang.
Tapasattanam.
Sapasatanang.
Bhajami.
Bajemi.
Sabbe.
Esabe.
Nesamam.
Besamang.
Punya Bhagam.
Punya Pagang.
Labantu.
Tu.
Sadhu.
Sadhu. Sadhu. Sadhu.